We often think of breakfast as a pretty simple choice, right? You either eat it or you skip it. But what if that decision tells a much deeper story about our health? Today, we're going to dig into the science and uncover the real hidden costs of skipping that first meal of the day. Let's get into it. I'm sure you've heard this one before from the famous nutritionist Adele Davis. It's one of those classic pieces of advice that's been around for years, basically crowning breakfast as the most important meal of them all. But is it just an old saying? Or is there some real hard science to back it up? Well, that's what we're here to find out. We're going to follow the evidence from a few key studies to really understand what happens to our bodies when we decide to skip breakfast. Okay, so first up, let's talk about something you can actually see. The most immediate thing researchers find is a link between skipping breakfast and our weight. It's a pattern that just keeps showing up again and again. And you know what? It turns out skipping breakfast is incredibly common. One study, this one on medical students in India, found that a whopping 60% of them skip breakfast at least once a week. So this isn't some rare thing. It's a huge trend, especially with younger folks. And the reasons why, well, they're probably going to sound super familiar. The usual suspects, a crazy busy schedule, just not feeling hungry in the morning, or maybe hitting that snooze button one too many times. Any of those sound about right? Okay, now this chart tells a really clear story. Take a look. For the students who never skipped breakfast, only about 24% were overweight. But that number jumps to 35% for those skipping just once a week. And for those skipping more than 3 times a week, it shoots up to 44%. The message here couldn't be clearer. The more you skip, the higher the link to an increased BMI. But hey, it's not just about the number on the scale. Not even close. When you skip breakfast, you're kicking off a kind of domino effect on your nutrition for the rest of the day. It creates something researchers call a nutrient gap. And this slide just lays it all out, clear as day. Research from different studies, including one on students in Japan, shows that breakfast eaters tend to have much healthier diets overall. More protein, more fruits, more vegetables. On the flip side, breakfast skippers often end up reaching for more unhealthy fats, processed stuff like noodles, and sugary soft drinks later on. And here's the kicker. You'd think people would just, make up for those missed nutrients later in the day, right? Well, the research says nope. That Japanese study found that skippers were consistently falling short on essential vitamins like A and C, and important minerals like calcium and iron. That nutritional hole you create in the morning, it casts a shadow over your whole day. So we've covered weight, we've covered nutrition, but the story goes even deeper than that. Some really big, recent studies have uncovered a connection that goes all the way down to our cells. To really get this next part, we need to talk about something called C-reactive protein, or CRP for short. The easiest way to think about it is like your body's internal alarm system. Your liver pumps it out when there's inflammation, and high levels are a major red flag for this chronic, simmering inflammation that's linked to all sorts of serious health problems. And this is where it gets really fascinating. A massive study in China, looking at over 70,000 adults, found a direct link between the habit of skipping breakfast and having higher levels of this inflammation marker. Just look at the numbers here. Now, even after the researchers accounted for all sorts of other things like diet and lifestyle, the results were undeniable. People who ate breakfast every day had an average CRP level of 1.07, but for the skippers, that number jumped up to 1.33. That is a really significant leap in inflammation. To put that into perspective, it means breakfast skippers were almost twice as likely, 1.86 times to be exact, to have clinically high levels of inflammation compared to people who ate breakfast every day. That's a staggering increase in risk. So what's the big deal? Well, this discovery is huge. It gives us a potential biological reason, a mechanism that could explain why skipping breakfast is so often linked to a higher risk for long-term problems like heart disease. This chronic inflammation could very well be the missing piece of the puzzle. Okay, so let's just take a step back and connect all these dots. Let's look at the big picture the science is painting for us. It all starts with what seems like a simple choice to skip a meal. But from there, it can be a sign of a higher BMI. It can lead to gaps in crucial nutrients that you just don't make up for. And now we know it's also linked to a state of chronic, low-grade inflammation in your body. It's a clear chain reaction of health risks. So in the end, that first meal of the day is so much more than just a quick bite to eat. It's a marker for your overall diet, your nutritional status, and maybe even the level of inflammation happening inside your body. It really makes you stop and ask the question, what is your morning meal, or the lack of one, really a marker for?